All right. Hello and welcome to the Culture Hour, another edition of fun, new, exciting topics. Today we're very excited about our guests, as we always love our guests. But until then, introduction. My name is Shelley Smith, the founder of Premier Rapport in the Culture Hour, and
I am Elizabeth Veliz, Vice President of HR and Organizational Development at Virginia Premier.
We are so happy to be back together in force. We haven't had a mutual taping together in a while, so yay!
I know, it's been a while.
It has. So welcome again to our audience and followers, and Elizabeth and I are just thrilled today. We have what you may see as a familiar face. He's been on the scene for years. He's the founder of Culture Works. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Culture Works. Best-selling author. I'm sure you've heard of probably, I know one of the ones that I first heard Elizabeth talking about, Adrian Gostick, our guest here today, was the Carrot Principle, which I absolutely love, All In, and The Win. Is that correct as well?
The best team wins.
There you go.
New book. Yeah.
So I can't wait to read that one. I don't have my copy yet, and maybe he'll even sign it for me if I send it over to you, right?
Absolutely.
So today, of course, it's called the Culture Hour, so we're going to talk everything culture. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Adrian? Give the audience a perspective of how you got started, maybe some things that you've learned over the years, and then we'll just dive in and see what's going on in the world of culture today.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. Thanks, Elizabeth. For those of you who aren't familiar with our work, we've written now 11 books on employee engagement, on culture, on rewards and recognition. So we, as Shelley says, we have been around a little while doing this. What's been fun is, in fact, I just got back yesterday from Kuwait, where we were taking some of our ideas to the Arab world, and where they're very well accepting of some of these Western ideas that we have on employee engagement and culture. And as we do work, though, we've surveyed now, Chester Elton, my co-author, and I surveyed almost 1 million employees about really what it is that drives great cultures, and what are some of the things that maybe some cultures are missing. And so I'm so glad that you're focusing just on culture, because it really is one of the last differentiators left. As people can replicate your products, your pricing, et cetera. We have all this talk about, is it big data? Is it customer service? What is it that differentiates us? Well, it's our people. And our people are differentiated if we have a very clear, defined culture. So that's really where our work has taken us. We started in the world of rewards and recognition, but very quickly our clients pushed us to do more and to help them with their cultures. So over the years, we've had a chance to help American Express with their culture, Rolls-Royce. We're working now with Ford, and we're working with some wonderful organizations that are trying to really define themselves and figure out where they are and where they're going. And we also work with a lot of smaller organizations too. So it's been a lot of fun. It's taken us around the world to do some really, I think, fun and also impactful work.
Beautiful. So is there any common threads that you want to share with us that you're seeing in today's workplace culture, woes? For example, the disengagement numbers have remained the same for a decade. So I'm curious is your perspective, is there anything that's different, or just the challenge just continues to be real and hard?
No, that's a great question, and we really are finding it. In fact, our new book we put out with Simon & Schuster this past spring was called The Best Team Wins, and what we did was exactly what you're talking about. What are some of those great teams, those great organizations doing differently than others really weren't doing, just even a few years ago? And we did find some differences as we analyzed the data, and we also interviewed lots of great organizations, went in there. And what we found were a few things that really are different. First off, the speed of change, as we all know, has just accelerated. So what great organizations are doing, they're bringing people on much faster. They're getting them up to speed much more effectively, using ideas that we call creating security with them from day one, creating an affiliation with the organization, providing context for them so they understand where they fit. Some of the other things we found, too, that are very different is, for example, with employee engagement, as you say, we've been worrying about employee engagement since really the late 80s, and yet nothing has changed.
Right.
Employee engagement scores are not improving. Mm-hmm. So what we found in the best organizations, they've realized we've been doing it all wrong. We try to implement these employee engagement solutions across the system. those typically don't work. We're all very, very different.
Right.
And what we're finding is a term we call managing to the one, where we have to realize Shelley and Elizabeth are going to have very different drivers, and I have to manage them in very different ways. In the past, we used to say, oh, we manage everybody the same because that's fair. What we've realized is that's actually stupid. You know, you're very different. You know, Elizabeth needs time off because she just got this 4-month-old puppy. You know, maybe she needs a little bit more time, where Shelley maybe wants more time with the CEO and more time to climb the corporate ladder. You know, we're all very different, and we all need to be managed in very different ways. So we started finding these really unique elements of great teams that are, you're right, very different. And then the needle starts moving.
So I'm going to jump in really quick because for those of you in our audience that don't know, I am not a fan of Adrienne and Chester. I am literally a groupie.
Yeah,
they know this.
She's a stalker.
I am. They know this. They have accepted it over the last 10 years. I firmly believe in the concept of managing to the one. So you can imagine, Adrienne, now that I'm back in, you know, a big girl job, right, as a vice president and not doing my consulting firm that much anymore, imagine the surprise when the vice president of HR stands up and tells people, no, you shouldn't be managing everyone the same way. Absolutely not. And they get this look of, wait a minute, you mean we're allowed to manage people differently? And I try to explain to them this concept of everyone's needs are individual needs. And so the pushback that I get is, well, you know, we've always been told to practice the golden rule, treat others as how you want to be treated. My immediate response to that is, how about we practice the platinum rule? You treat others the way they want to be treated, because the way you want to be treated could be completely different. Yeah. So how have you seen the concept of managing to the one being embraced by human resources professionals at higher levels in organizations? Because I have found when I talk to colleagues at my level now in organizations, they're like, oh, no, we can't do that.
Yeah. And it's a great astute question, because in theory, we all think this is wise. You know, as you talk to other HR professionals, they all say, oh, absolutely. But in practice, do they do it? No, heavens no.
Right.
And there are differentiators of as you look at this. For instance, the rules. You know, if you look at the rule of sexual harassment, should everybody be treated exactly the same? Yes. You know, you can't let your top sales producer get away with something that you wouldn't let a line employee get away with. So as the rules go, we all have to follow the same rules and make sure we are in compliance. Now, how I manage you may be very different. Again, you may be looking to grow, and you know, my millennials, for instance, have a very different idea of what managing means than I do, you know, later in my career now. What we found, and this is fascinating in our latest research, like, for instance, we've all believed that autonomy is one of the top drivers of a workplace. Dan Pink in his book Drive says autonomy is actually the most important driver of workplace satisfaction. We actually find it isn't for millennials. It's actually one of the bottom drivers. Of 23 different human motivators, we found autonomy typically comes out on the bottom for more than 80% of millennials. Why? Well, they want to be managed closely. They want somebody to help them, direct them through the complexities of this corporate world. And so while autonomy is very important for people in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, it is, you know, as one millennial told me, she said, autonomy, she says, that's terrifying. Why would I want to be autonomous in my work?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have to understand that how we manage people is very different than the rules. And so I think as you're talking to a lot of the HR professionals, they haven't made that distinction yet between rules and how you manage people. You know, again, it's very different. You know, the level of recognition too, you know, that's one of our, you know, we've always sort of worked in that realm of recognition. Again, as we look at generational differences, now again, everybody's different, I know that, but we are seeing some generational differences where recognition is 3 times more important for our millennial employees and our iGen employees than it is for our older workers. as we age, it sort of, we become more extrinsically motivated, or intrinsically, sorry, motivated than we are extrinsically. But when we're younger, we do need a little bit more, many of us need a little bit more reinforcement. But again, if we think everybody's the same, or we treat everybody the same, we're not going to be able to manage in this very nuanced way.
Right. The behavioral needs and the motivation needs are differently. A recent study that I use Predictive Index for the behavioral side, and a recent study that they put out, they had the results that the millennial leaders that were graded between great managers and bad managers, millennials many times for the various questions came out on top for everything you just said. They are about the collaborative nuances. They are about the support and being supporter. They like getting feedback, so they're great at giving feedback. So their communication ability, where we think it's distraught because of all the social technology, their need, their wants, and their desires about the input and the agreement and the consensus actually helps them when it comes to a management perspective. And it goes straight into what you're talking about. I am curious to, because managing to one obviously takes a lot more time than being able to manage to the bulk. So I'm curious to what is you're seeing from the executives, the owners that you're working with, and how are you creating the buy-in? I mean, the three of us know it's a no-brainer when it comes to the bottom line, how having the engagement increases the cash flow. We know that. But how are you getting through those barriers that, and I know I'm having them, so I'm curious to how you're getting through them when it comes to, you got to spend more time, but it's a huge win on the back end.
And, and I hate to be a defeatist, but I'll just be honest, if a manager or a leader doesn't get it, it's very hard. Sometimes I get asked, boy, you must go into some really diseased, tough environments. No, they never call me. They probably never call you either.
It's true. True.
Those organizations that are good, that really get this, but
and they're ready to level up again. Yeah.
Yeah, and they want to move up a little bit. They want to really inculcate this, and so that's usually who we're working with, and that's good. But it's also bad because the ones who really need us don't call. Yeah. Now, with that said, you asked a couple of questions in there which I thought were good. One is that how then do you inculcate this? How do you get managers really to sort of buy in and really believe in this? And one of the things, I was working with a marketing division of Microsoft a few years ago, and they were having a terrible time losing a lot of their millennial, whether they were salespeople coming in or they're, really hot shots that they were bringing out of college. And what they started implementing was something they called aspirational conversations. Once a month, your manager would sit down with you and have a meeting about your career. They wouldn't talk about your projects. They wouldn't talk about that personality issue you were having with Susan next door. No, it would just be about your career. Now, it could take 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but who wouldn't go to a meeting excited like that if it was all about me and my career and growth? Yeah. And they found in this one area that they cut their millennial turnover about in half just by simply having these aspirational conversations every month. We got into
Why is that so mind-blowing for people to get?
Exactly. It's very simple. What we're not talking about is sometimes people want complexity. They want all these models and this and the other. Yeah. A lot of times it's just simply doing those hard things we need to do. And at the beginning of your question, you said, this may take a lot of time. And you're exactly right. This may take a little bit more time than you used to. But if we could cut your valuable employee turnover in half, and it takes half an hour per employee per month, would you do it? Probably you would. Now, again, that's one company, that one example. We had a chance to work with a large retailer when they merged two large of their organizations together. They found that they had to do these aspirational conversations weekly with people to stem turnover. It was, in a high-paced retail organization that they were, turnover is 100, 200% a year. Again, they were impacting turnover by simply talking about people's careers. How can we help you grow? And it's not just getting a promotion. If I'm driven by ideas like creativity or maybe I am more autonomous, great. Let me help you. Maybe you could have a project redesigning the end caps for the retail store and finding ways to use that creativity and working independently. Or maybe I'm driven more by teamwork or more by ideas of ownership. Well, there are ways that I can sculpt your job just a little bit to give you a few more of those things that you value, and maybe take away a couple of those little things that frustrate you.
Yeah.
And so I can tell you that after I read that in one of your books, and I can't remember if it was What Motivates Me or The Best Team Wins. I think it was the former. I started actually having aspirational meetings every fourth one-on-one with the people that report directly to me. And then I trained my leaders in the HROD division, which we have like 66 people in HROD in my company, and they all fall under me. And so that has all trickled down throughout the organization. And I can tell you, I've gotten nothing but positive feedback from the employees inside of HROD about how the shift in the one-on-one discussions has really just made HR a really great place to work. And then if the word of mouth wasn't good enough, the employee engagement scores came out for my division, and we did really, really well. We did above what the organization did. And my leadership action planning readiness score, we use Press Ganey, so they use the APR, was almost in the 90s, which is very, very, very high. And that was specifically because of I shifted from, hey, in these one-on-ones, which I always have, but I was very business focused, very, very business focused. And then I shifted and started having that third or fourth meeting be about, talk to me about how do you want to grow in the next 18 months? What activities, education, experience, projects can I put you on to help you achieve that growth? Mm-hmm. And people were like, what? Wait, wow, that's great, you know? And so I want to ask you something a little bit, I don't know how you're going to feel about this question, Adrienne, but I've been doing a lot of reading lately about, employee engagement is a thing of the past, and we now have to focus on the employee experience. So I did this. I literally went like that and scratched my head because I was thinking to myself, doesn't the employee experience drive engagement?
You know, and it's in some ways it's a little semantics. I mean, the idea of employee engagement is, you know, what the idea of this movement is, employee engagement is very work focused, where the employee experience is whole life. I'm worrying about you as a whole person. And and that's really what we're talking about here anyway. We're talking about managing to the one. I should know that what's your personal life a little bit. I'm not nosy, and sticking my nose in where it's not wanted, but I do know, hey, how are the kids doing? How's I do know a few things about you, and realize that you are a whole person who wants to achieve things within, workplace and outside of the workplace. And so that's important. Maybe you run marathons, maybe a mountain climb, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the whole life experience, I mean, it's a good word, it's a good term, employee experience, but no matter how we look at it, it really is creating this culture. It's really creating a place where we care about people and we value them as individuals. And so I tend not to get too hung up on the semantics of it. It's more the behaviors that we can drive. But it's really interesting. I think you're very astute that we are moving in that direction. But, in 5 years from now, there'll be another term and another term. And it really comes down to when you think about those great leaders from your past, like you're doing right now with your employees, those great leaders cared about us as individuals. Yeah. They gave us clarity of goal and mission. They recognized us when we did something great. And they were very challenging to us. They pushed us to reach our limit even. But so I think, it's very, very, maybe we're getting into the nuances of the wording, but really what it comes down to is, do we care for our people?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Exactly. Well, it's time for us to start wrapping this up. I do want to interject that I think we're all saying and have been saying that it comes down to the conversations. I love adding the word aspirational conversations to that. Elizabeth was actually quoted, now it's been a couple of months ago, on a podcast when asked, kind of how you spend your day. And she's like, 80% of my day is around my people, for my people, teaching my people, talking to my people, mentoring my people. And, people thought, wow, what a great idea. And of course, we're like, well, what else would you be doing?
I know.
So, it comes back to what's common to us, it's because it's what we do, and it's why, you know, obviously people call on all of us. But I think the more that we, you know, continue to talk about the need for the conversation, and the conversation happens not just from a culture standpoint, but it's how people, you know, get sales. It's the conversation. It's not the marketing digital. It's the conversations and the word of mouth and the people that you know, and are you trusted. And it's the same thing in our work environments, and we just keep over complicating it.
Mhm.
So Adrian, thank you for your time today. Why don't you give the listeners a couple things? We want to know best how to get in touch with you, and I'll add it to the bottom of the link here. But then also, are there any closing thoughts, tips, comments, a particular maybe chapter in your most recent book that they should zero in on? You tell us.
Well, thanks. Well, thanks, Shelley and Elizabeth, first off, for your time today and your interest in our work and your support. A couple of ways to get a hold of us. We're at thecultureworks.com. Really, it's Adrian at thecultureworks.com, or pick up one of our books, wherever fine books are sold. If there's one last thing I would say is probably, you know, look where we all are. If you see our backgrounds here, we're all working in different places. We're all working, some of us, you know, home offices, some of us, yeah. But so that the idea is wherever these things work. And when I was in Kuwait this last week, it was interesting. A lot of the leaders came up and said, look, honestly, we're a very patriarchal culture. We're very hierarchical in our company. They said, but, you know, a lot of these ideas I'll try, but I'm really going to use them at home. And so that's one of the good things too, is that no matter where we go and what we learn here with these leadership ideas that we're throwing out, is that, you know, use them in your personal lives too. Use them with your families, use them to build better communities, whether you're, you know, volunteering at a nonprofit or whatever you're doing. That's been one of the fun things we found as well. When we get emails back from people, or they connect on LinkedIn, they say, you know, helped me in my job, but really helped me in my personal life. So that's been the most, I think, rewarding for us.
I love that. You know, that's a different way for folks that have kids to have conversations about grades and progress and goals. And you're right. And especially as, you know, progress reports for first semester starting to come out. So I love that. I'm going to use that too. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. Elizabeth, any parting comments from you as well today before we put a wrap on this?
Sure. I just want to say that I have met a lot of people in my 26 years in business. And I will tell everyone who is watching and listening to this that there aren't two finer people than the people that are on this video right now, Adrian Gostick and Shelley Smith, because they both bring a very similar perspective, but different worlds of experience to the table. And it's always an honor for me to be a part of this with you, Shelley. And now, you know, Adrian, after almost 10 years of seeing you, to be able to sit here and ask you questions, I think it's been amazing for me as your self-professed groupie. So thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. We hope you have a great day. And remember, no matter what, people matter, culture matters, and have some conversations today. Have some aspirational conversations today. Until then, peace out, everybody.